Hey listeners, did you know that Yogi Triathlete offers endurance coaching for body and mind? We offer personalized training plans for endurance sports, wellness and mindset, nutrition and recovery guidance, and race preparation and strategy, all within the supportive community of Team Yogi Triathlete. So if you're ready to conquer your fitness goals and push your limits, our endurance coaches are ready to guide you on the journey to peak performance. Go to yogitriathlete.com today to set up your free 30-minute discovery call and embrace a future of strength, stamina, and achievement. Your goals, our experience, the perfect match for unstoppable success. That is my purpose on this earth, is to lead yoga adventures, because I want to jump off a 25-foot cliff and I want a 12-minute Shavasana. Like, I want an 8-hour meditation a couple times a year, and I want to take a tiny little plane in fierce headwinds like I did last week, where you feel like you're in a paper airplane, and I want that exhilaration. And so a yoga adventure is adventure travel grounded in yoga. Welcome back to the Yogi Triathlete podcast. I'm Jess. I'm here with BJ, and we're about to throw down another episode of our Pause series. And I believe this one is going to be centered around my 2+ weeks in Chile.
Amazing weeks. Spectacular weeks.
Yeah, all the feels kind of weeks.
Yeah.
Really, like all the feels.
It's good to sit down and reconnect. I know you just arrived home yesterday, so we've had less than 24 hours to kind of reconnect and see like what the vibe is. I know you showed me some photos, told me some stories, but this is a good way to capture that so our audience, the listeners, can kind of really feel what you experienced down there, not only the week of the retreat, but beyond the retreat, the time you spent alone in the woods by yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's, when I first got there, I thought, I'm not taking any pictures. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to share about it, because I just really wanted to go in and have this experience. And then I thought, well, that feels very limiting. That feels very hard lined. That doesn't feel like me. And then it became very clear, like the next day, really, that as a woman traveling by herself in a country where I'm going to be completely off the grid, no electricity where I'm staying, no Wi-Fi, I think it's very important to share this experience. And it really came when in the back of my journal are always my notes from our conversations with Bob, our meditation teacher. And I opened every time, now and again, I open up the back of my journal to just see what kind of wisdom that will come to me. And the thing that I opened up to, here it is, it's right here. If you bury your talents in the ground, they'll be taken away. And for me, I think being so independent, being very strong, but also being very vulnerable, and wanting to be adventurous and walk this earth without fear, that is a gift. That is a talent. And if I don't share that, I don't want that to be taken away. I hold that not just as a part of my personality, but as a purpose in this world. And that I want to continue to live in that way. And this experience was unearthing that gift to its next level. And I think it is important to share it, because my experience is that there are kind and good people in this world. And the last 2 weeks did nothing but reinforce that. And one thing that Bob has really taught us is like, understand the world you live in. There's not all good and kind people in this world. I understand that. I am not a yogi who believes that it's all okay, because it's not all okay. I do believe that everything resolves to good. And I do believe that there are good and kind people in this world. And that when we can metabolize intention like, I want to walk this earth without fear, I don't do that without common sense, but I do it without fear. And that living in that way will call me to more adventure. And I have an intention to inspire others to go after those things that will put them into the unknown. And it doesn't matter how big or small that looks like on paper. It's whatever it is that's on your heart. The moment it gets put on your heart or you realize that it's there, the mechanics to bring that into manifestation are also there. And you have what it takes to do that. So I think it's important to share.
Yeah, share this experience, and share it in a way in which you just built the framework around, which is there is going to be fear and the unknown. It really, this sense of adventure really comes down to what's your relationship with that, or with not feeding. What we most often do is fear bad, not fear good. So we're feeding what could possibly go wrong versus all the amazing things that could possibly go right. And the same thing in sport and in training overlaps there so much. But I think I know this adventure travel that you do, it's presenting such a immersive opportunity to butt up against what you believe to be unknown and your relationship to that, and also what it's like to get on the other side of it.
And I have to tell you, I had no fear around this. It just didn't show up. That doesn't mean that I won't have something that I do in the future where I'm like, whoa, I could be taking my last breaths on this adventure. I had nothing but like contentment around this, I guess contentment, but also it was excitement. And I'm not immune to having fearful thoughts, but for leading into this, I did not have any. And I did not have any while I was there. And there were times where, I've talked to you about, being on some of these trails that were like overgrown, and I'm just going deep, deep, deep into the forest by myself. And I'm thinking, I should probably have a first aid kit in my pack. That would be probably super smart. But yeah, I didn't have it. And I think that's the beauty of living in intention, like walking the earth without fear, right? Is that you will call into your life experience situations where there is no fear. And that's what I experienced leading into this, during it, and even afterwards. Because there's been many times in my life where I have done stuff. I have, even who I am now, like sometimes I do things that are a little reckless. And I've had things where I'm like, oh my God, like, whoa, Jess, like maybe a couple more thoughts before you do that thing again. But I had no fear going into it, during it, or after it.
Yeah, and this experience is unfolding in a way that it's just, you didn't go into this trip and say, like, I'm not going to have any fear. Here we go, pack me up, I'm going to fly to Patagonia. It's this, all the events, choices, decisions, experiences, challenges that you had leading up to this point that put you in that position. So it's not, sign up for Patagonia and you will remove all the fears that you have about everything. We are always going to be presented with fear or moments where you can be fearful. And the more that you do that every day, the more you're setting the track for these experiences that you experienced this last week. But you set yourself up. My point is, you set yourself up not just the week before or the time that you booked the trip. You set it up in the weeks and months and years leading into it, because that is your nature.
I had remembered a moment when I was in India, and that was my first big trip. And that was a big trip for your first big trip. It was a big trip. And we were living in Boulder at the time, the bubble. And I remember leaving my hotel room one night because I just wanted to walk around. And I was walking around Dharamsala in the dark, and not just in the town. Like, I was going to some of the little outskirts, little shops or restaurants, or going by houses and stuff. And I remember this moment so clearly when it was like, it just shook me in this way of like, I feel safer walking through this town than I do walking in Boulder at night. And that was a real transformative moment for me, because I think sometimes we think like, well, home is the only safe place, and if you go outside of your home, or you go to another country, or you go to like a developing nation like India, that, you should be fearful. And it was this moment of realizing like that, and that's really where the I will walk the earth without fear came in, because I was.
Yeah, I remember that time too. That was a big trip for me, to stay home without you for I don't know, 3 weeks, something like that.
Well, we ended up getting stuck there because they canceled our flight.
Oh, that's right.
But anyway,
yeah,
I think we got back like in time. But that was another one, like handing this child, looked like it was like 12 years old, like a huge stack of rupees, and hopping into this car at 8:00 at night and being like, well, in 12 hours, I'm either going to be dead or I'm going to be in Delhi. And having this, he looked very young, drive us through the Himalayas in the middle of the night to get to the airport. And so that was another one, and looking out the window and literally seeing buses and cars like that had fallen off the side of the road. But yeah, that was another one. That definitely had a little bit of like, was definitely doing some breathing in the back of the car, because there was a massive language barrier and all of that. But yeah, that was a good first trip, and that was a big one. And there was a lot of things that happened on that trip that really informed this zest that I have to not just see the world selfishly, but to be in a position where I create a space where people can come and see the world, and we can do it alongside each other.
Well, you're a natural born leader. So you're leading off the front, doing the work yourself to help lead other people. And I know in the first retreat, I think there were people that hadn't done rafting before, or gotten on the whitewater. Mm-hmm. So there's people that are trusting themselves in the adventure, and they want to be confident that somebody who's leading is capable of holding the space for all of them, for the people who are experienced and the people who might have hesitation. So that's why I think these yoga retreats, or I know these yoga retreats, are what you're calling. Like, it's what your yoga adventures you're meant to lead. So let's jump right in. What is a yoga adventure?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was actually just on the phone with another teacher from the Travel Yogi. We connected on, we were just connecting on a few things about different trips, and she asked me how I got involved with the Travel Yogi, and it was through Luca's mom. Luca, our athlete on the team here, 13-year-old athlete who is incredible, and his mom is incredible as well. And she was doing this yoga adventure, and I thought, oh my God, a yoga adventure, like it was a moment where I felt a lot of purpose in my life. I've had a lot of intuition in my life. I've lived that way my whole life, right? Like, making choices that don't make sense. And it all brought me to this moment where I recognized that there was this thing that existed called a yoga adventure. And I was like, that is my purpose on this earth, is to lead yoga adventures, because I want to jump off a 25-foot cliff and I want a 12-minute Shavasana. Like, I want an 8-hour meditation a couple times a year, and I want to take a tiny little plane in fierce headwinds like I did last week, where you feel like you're in a paper airplane. And I want that exhilaration. And so a yoga adventure is adventure travel grounded in yoga. So typically we have 1 to 2 classes per day, every day on the trip. And what I believe that the yoga really allows for, it allows for the full integration of everything you're doing during the adventure hours, because there's a lot going on. And you're in these incredible places. The travel yogi consciously curates these experiences with meaningful cultural immersion and allows you to experience these places that are very popular on this earth, but in a way where you're seeing the unseen. And there's a lot to take in. And I believe that the yoga then slows you down to a place where you can really metabolize the grandeur of the experience that you're actually having, because we're doing a lot. And the two of them together, it's almost like yoga and triathlon. Like, why would you do triathlon without the science of the mind? Same thing with yoga adventures. It's adventure travel. It's rich adventure travel with even richer yoga practice, the ancient science of the mind, to fully be present to all that you are taking in through your senses. And I think that it just grounds the experience in a way where you can have an adventurous week without being wrecked from it, because it's so restorative to do a 20-minute yoga nidra practice or have that 12-minute shavasana, which I'm very cognizant of. If there's days where we're going, and then I will get them on the mat. We'll start super slow. I'll take them up that little mountain a little bit. I'll take them down the other side, and then I'll give them a massive rest at the end, so that we are nurturing the nervous system amidst a very exhilarating, energizing experience.
Yeah, all I'm seeing is, looking at the contrast would be you're trying to hurry up to get as much as you can in on an adventure. And before it's even started, you're already looking at when it's going to end and what's going to happen after it. And then you leave and you forget some of the magical moments that did happen. So the bookending, even the days, and some sort of reviewing what happened during the day, what you experienced, what you felt, what you heard, what you smelled, all the senses, I see can really build a more meaningful adventure that probably deepens your connection with that specific location. So in this one, it was Patagonia, and I know you have a passion now for the people, the land, the environment, all of it, mm-hmm. from deeply experiencing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about any magical moments? Do you want to dive into that?
About on the adventure, because this is the second time I did the adventure.
Yeah, talk about the adventure first, and then we'll dive into your little.
Yeah, well, I had
not little, your grandeur escape.
I mean, there was miracle moments all over the place, and there was miracle moments through the whole. I mean, let's be frank here. I sell these retreats. My job is to be the yoga teacher, to provide this space of safety in have your experience fully, in a safe container, and be as Travel Yogi says, the social glue for the group. And a part of that is getting people to sign up, because without guests, we don't have a trip. And so there was miracle moments all over the place. And some of the miracle moments like didn't feel good, but they allowed me to let go. So other miracle moments of people coming into the trip could happen. And there was a lot of miracle moments that happened around this trip. And being the second time that I was there was really incredible to now step back and take a more overview perspective of like, I knew the lay of the land and all of that. I also knew that the river, not only is she different every moment, she's different every day. And of course she was going to be different this year over last year. And the trees have changed and there's new birds and there's, there's new water in the lakes. And I knew that it would be different, but to have this overview look of being able to stand behind the group and watch this adventure unfold through their eyes was really, really cool. That I think was an overarching miracle moment. One thing that I didn't do when I was there in March was canyoneering. And so this year I really wanted to do the canyoneering, and there was a day where, we were in like little rafts actually on the river, which is such a fun day. You're in like little rafts with the guides, and we stop at this place and we have lunch, and of course the food is amazing and so nourishing. You're just so cared for. And this isn't just Patagonia. This is like all the teams that Travel Yogi partners with. Like they have such wonderful partnerships, and they won't settle for anything less, which I like that level of excellence. That aligns with me greatly. And so anyway, we went canyoneering. And I didn't go the year before because it was a colder day, and I just had a chill that I couldn't shake. And it was a cloudy day, and you're going up through like this creek, basically up to a waterfall that's, glacier fed. It's ice cold, and I didn't go. And so this year I was like, I'm going hell or high water. We'll go on to canyoneering. And so it was me. It was a smaller group. It was me and two other women, and then two guides. And we drive to this place, and we go through the woods, and the whole thing was like, it's going to be cold, so like bundle up and have our wetsuits and all this other stuff. But it's like from the start, I'm like, it kind of feels nice and warm, And so we're going through the woods, and there must have been some kind of crazy storm because there was trees down and everything. And one of our guides, who's just this he's just this incredible earthly presence. And he was literally, I was behind him, and he's much taller than me. He was literally just like taking trees and like throwing them to the side. Like he's just, if you're going to be in the woods, this is the guy you want to be in the woods with. He's amazing. And so then we get to basically the creek or the river or whatever, and there's all these big rocks and stuff. And I touched the water for the first time, and I was like, the water's warm. Like, this is really nice. And then the sun's out now, right? Like the sun's out, and you're going up through this, I guess I'll call it a creek. Like you're going up through this creek, and you're like climbing over these big rocks, and you're in the water, and you're out of the water, and sometimes you have to get in the water and push off a rock and get to the next rock, and you're climbing up, and it's just sunny, and it's warm, and it's beautiful. And we stopped at this one point, and there's this big rock right in the middle, and I was like, oh, I gotta scream. Like I got to scream. And so primal screaming is something that I've actually learned about it when I was in massage school as a way to just release, anything that you are holding in the vault, and you don't even have to know. I mean, I've been feeling good, but in that moment I was like, I gotta like scream. So I stood on this rock, and I said, all right, you guys, I need to scream. It's hard to scream in the States because it's just, we're so close, And so I don't think the guides knew what they were in for when I screamed in that way, but it's very carnal, it's very primal, and it's kind of scary. And I scream until the voice is gone, right? And then I was like, then I get fired up. I'm like, yes, we all have to scream. We all have to scream. And then we get up to the waterfall, and you got to like kind of like slide over this rock, and then you like climb in through this, like you're in this very tight space behind this waterfall, which is not very big, but it is so powerful, and it's freezing cold back there. That was actually cold. And you're in the pitch dark, and you're like up up to your shoulders in water, and there's this massive waterfall. But one of the guides was already in there, the guy that was like, throwing the trees out of the way. And then like a hand of God in the pitch dark comes this like big, strong arm. And you're like, oh my God, that's Ty. And you just grab onto his wrist and he pulls you into this place where you can now stand behind the waterfall. And we did another scream in there. And then he basically sent me through the waterfall, and you pop out the other side, like it spits you out. And then everybody did it, and we had a lot of fun. We were laughing and taking videos. And then right at the end, I was like, can we please all scream? And I just had that scene from Garden State when we're over that big abyss, and they just scream. And like in that moment, we like lived that scene from that movie, and it was so beautiful. And then of course, at that point, I completely blew my voice out. But that was, it's hard to say that was my favorite thing or that was my favorite, but it was something new that I did this year, and I'm so glad I did it. It was really, really fun and adventurous and fulfilling. And I feel like that whole experience was a miracle moment. Yeah.
I remember you calling and you had lost your voice again. I could barely hear you.
I know. So bad.
Again. But it's worth it.
It happens on the 3 screams, and I don't need to do anything, but maybe stop at 2. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what you were talking about earlier. You do some things that are risky. There you go.
That I have to teach yoga for 3 days with no voice. But so far, all the guests have been very kind about me losing my voice on retreat.
Yeah. Guess you could just sign.
Yeah, we have to bake that into the terms and agreement. By the way, if you're traveling with Jess.
But that's all part of the fun. It's all part of like you were talking about immersing yourself fully into it.
It was
the protection
fun.
would come over and say like, don't yell because you need to preserve your voice for teaching yoga or whatever, right? And it's like be in the moment, like if you're really connected, that desire, that urge, you've got to feed that. You must feed that.
And that release, those releases led into the next day where there was like a time where I actually felt like pretty discombobulated. And then I was like, I need my journal. And like everybody was kind of chilling and everything. And I got my journal and I just started like journaling. And then I got all this clarity and it was like, whoa. And it was this theme that ended up going into the next week about this full integration of who we are. And I'll just kind of leave it at that for now, because I'm sure I'll talk a little bit more about it. But that's what those kinds of things do. It's like, it just kind of it's like a volcano, right? It just kind of blows the plug off the volcano. And you don't have to be in a dysregulated state to scream like that. It just feels so good to let it go. And then you don't know what's going to come up. And I love that. You just don't know what's going to come up. And for me, it led to some really great clarity and letting go, which a part of like my personal thing about going on this trip this year was to bless it and let it go. I don't know if I'll be back. I don't know. We'll see. I don't have plans right now of initiating a trip. And so, yeah, bless it and let it go.
Well, maybe that was fuel for what you embarked on after this trip, knowing that you're not going to come back and that or possibly come back in the near future, but maybe one day, that you needed to fully take advantage of this. So what did you do?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to be back in Chile.
I know.
I'm going to be in Patagonia in December.
What did you do after this retreat?
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So yeah, the adventure was incredible. Highly recommend. Take the trip. And then on the last day, Saturday, we fly back from Chaiten. We take a short flight from Chaiten to Puerto Montt. And that flight was, we were like driving, we're like in the bus, and I'm like looking at Ty, who's driving the bus, and I was like, the wind's pretty fierce. Like, we're going to be okay. We're going to be able to take off. And it was a bit of a paper airplane at the beginning. Like, we were getting kind of tossed around. But But as I've said, like if something happens and I don't return from one of these trips, please celebrate. Please, I mean, I know you'll mourn the loss, but please celebrate that I'm exactly where I want to be. And so we flew back to Puerto Montt, and I promptly got a driver to take me to the Puerto Montt airport, where I picked up a car. I needed to tidy up a few things with the business, so I sat at this little cafe at the airport and just banged out some stuff on using the Wi-Fi, and then got my car and drove to the Alerce Andino National Park area, which is about an hour and a half southeast of Chile, southeast of Puerto Montt. And I checked into my Airbnb for from Saturday until Thursday, completely off the grid, no electricity. And yeah.
Well, describe the place. Describe how not in the, how urban it was.
It was rural.
How rural? How rural it was.
Yeah. So, of course, anytime you ask me a question, I feel like I always have backstory with it. Many years ago, Bob planted a seed with me about, if you really want to take a retreat, get yourself a cabin in the woods and be by yourself. And that moment he said that, I knew that I would do it. This could have been 10 years ago. And I feel like I've been looking for that cabin for 10 years. And when I was writing Awake Athlete, there were times where I was looking for the cabin to go and to write. I was looking up in Idlewild. I was looking up in Northern California. I was looking for a place to go and write the rest of this book. And I never found the cabin. And I knew that I wanted to stay longer and extend my trip. And Chile is a very long country. And I didn't know where I was going to go or where I was going to stay. I just knew that I was going to go longer. I have this wonderful privilege of knowing people who, either from the triathlon community, who were born in Chile or frequent Chile, and also the people that I've been connected with in the Futaleufú area, and tapped into those resources. Like, hey, knowing me, where would you go? Like, what would you do? What are some of the things that you think, oh, you should definitely see? And I was given great suggestions that I did research. I don't do a lot of research. Did some research, looked at different areas, and I would just let it sit. And when it came time to book my flights, I still didn't know what I was doing, but I just booked my flights in and out of Puerto Montt with a week extra. And I started to look at the national parks. There's so many. There's so many parks in Chile, and I just wanted that cabin in the woods. And I started to look in different areas. I was looking up in Pucón. I was looking in Puerto Varas. I started looking south. I heard about this place called the Marble Caves, which would have been either a flight or a pretty long drive, even south of Futaleufú. And I took all of this into consideration, and then I thought, well, I'm flying in and out of Puerto Montt. Is there a park near Puerto Montt? And I found Alerce Andino National Park. And I was like, okay, well, that might do. So I followed that thread, got on Airbnb, started looking at places, and I found the cabin. I found the one I've been looking for. I remember it was at night, and I saw it, and I saw myself like walking in and out through the door, and I could feel it. I saw the view in the pictures, and I went to bed with the vision of that cabin in my mind and thought, if it's there the next day, I'm going to book it. And so the next day it was there. I think I said to you that night, I went up to bed and I said, I think I found a place. It just feels really good. And I'm just going to sleep on it. And is it okay that I'm doing this? And of course you said yes. And so the next day I went back, I looked at it again. I was like, yep, I just saw myself standing in front of it. I saw myself opening and closing the front door, which is essentially the entire front of this cabin. It was just huge sliding glass door. It was me. It was remote. It was hydropowered, solar powered, no Wi-Fi, off the grid, well appointed, well designed, beautiful architecture, very nice. And like I said before, I want to jump off a cliff and I want to do an 8-hour meditation. I want to be off the grid, and I really appreciate a nice design. And it just looked comfortable and I could just see myself there. So I read a couple of the reviews of the host, Gianfranco, and they were all very positive. But I already knew my answer. So I booked it, and I booked it for, I think, like 3 or 4 nights. And then I was going to maybe go somewhere else. And then I looked at some other amazing places. I was like, I'll go from the mountains to the ocean. And then we had a conversation with Bob, and I told him about the cabin. And I said, well, I think I'm going to leave and go somewhere else for a couple nights. And he just gave me this look. He doesn't necessarily ever tell us directly what to do, but he gave me a look, and I said, I just need to extend my stay. And he said, yes, you need to extend your stay. So I messaged Gianfranco, extended the stay for the entire time I was going to stay off the grid. And I also have an ultra marathon that I'm running in a few days this weekend. I'm definitely undercooked for run mileage on this, but I'm healthy, and my mindset is the strongest of anyone who's going to do that race. And I feel pretty confident about that. My mindset is solid. So I extended my stay, and I had this amazing place. I didn't show it to many people. I think I actually just showed it to you and Bob and my sister before I went. And then, once I got down there, I did show it to a couple other people. And so I checked in the day that the adventure ended. I checked in that day.
Yeah, to come from that first idea that Bob planted to like actually execution, you would think, Bob provides information, we act on it, and there it is. But there's stuff that takes years for it to manifest perfectly, like this cabin in the woods. It all lined up perfectly for the best experience possible that you could have.
It was such a testament to following your intuition. You pull something up and you actually like visualize yourself immediately, like walking in and out of the place. Like you book that place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it was such a testament to inspired action, not getting caught up in logistics, how this is going to work. How am I going to get there? It's like in the middle of the wilderness. It's like unpaved roads. Like can't get involved in any of that.
The details will fill in.
Yes. And then it fills in better than you could have ever. I could not have imagined. I could not have articulated or imagined the experience that I had. I knew it was going to be deep, but there were so many, again, miracle moments. And one of those miracle moments was my host.
Well, what is that? Oh, yeah, the only limits are the limits of our mind. So if you write down on a spreadsheet all the details and you plan everything out to control the whole trip, how you get there, the car, blah, 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 you're leaving out a lot of possibly incredible moments.
You're going to have a very controlled trip.
Yeah.
You're going to have a very controlled trip.
And in control is safety and the known and all that stuff. But there's so many things, I'm on board with it too, where you just have to listen to your heart and take action, inspired action, and then see what comes of it, and be willing to wait it out, meaning maybe it's this trip, maybe it's the next one, maybe it's 10 trips down the line. But as you continually take this inspired action and the details fill in, that glorious, quintessential, is going to be delivered. We just don't know when. But this just so happens to have set up for you. But how many trips have you taken leading into this where you took inspired action to actually execute and take advantage of it? And it's like, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Oh, amazing, amazing. But this was like top of the line, top experience.
Yeah.
But you set it all up, is my point. Like, you set it all up, and then as the theme for the year goes,
bless it and let it go.
Let it go. Back off. Let whatever is be okay.
Yeah. And, some of the clarity too that came in through this week of being by myself was more clarity around what letting go actually is and what our involvement is in the manifestation of things that are set on our heart or things that we want to achieve in our life. And I always say to the athletes I work with, if they want to win their age group or finish their first 70.3 or whatever, I say the dream is yours. That's done. 100% that's done. All you have to do is keep, the steps that you take have to be actionable to the goal. If you just do that, the dream is yours. What is not yours is the timeline. The timeline is not yours. The dream is yours. It's done. You have all the mechanics to make it happen. You need to stay the course.
Yes.
If they can stay the course, the dream is going to happen. The timeline is not ours to fuss with, because timing truly is divine. And this trip, this experience that I had with Gianfranco and his amazing creation, and him as a one of the most incredible people I've ever met on this earth. Yeah. Never could have scripted that.
And you don't want to. Mm-mm. You want to experience it.
Yeah.
So, tell us about what you did while you were there. You've got this amazing place. You've done your retreat. Your voice is slowly coming back. You're by yourself. You've got no connection to the outside world, and it's just you and you, which we actually experienced a little bit together when we hit the road to drive across the country in a little car. But now you're not driving across the United States. You're in the barren woods, not barren woods. You're in the, abundantly green and lush woods, because I've seen some photos now. And you're by yourself. And the only thing you have is you and your thoughts.
There was one night where I woke up and I would have these little nudges, go look at the sky. And it had been cloudy. When I arrived, it was rainy. And I think it was the second night, I just got this nudge, go look outside. And I wrapped myself in a blanket and I walked outside and I looked up and the sky was so clear. And you can really see the Milky Way galaxy. And there were, you can see satellites, and it was just this crystal clear night of just diamonds in the sky. And I went down to this lower platform and I just lied down. It was cold. It was wet because it had been raining. And I was just wrapped in this blanket and I looked up at the sky and I just started what I became really good at over the course of 6 days, which is to just stare and do nothing. And then I went back in to the house and I don't know what I did, but then the mind is so interesting because I kept watching my mind want more. And then I peeked back outside again. It was cloudy. It was gone. And in a matter of moments, this clear sky. So what I'm getting at to answer your question is, when I was lying out there by myself, I just thought, how do you describe this? How do you put this into words? And the answer is, I can't. And I heard that throughout the week on the retreat. We just kept talking about like all of these really incredible moments that we had as a family with our crew and our guests that can never be put on an itinerary. And I think that's why it's so important to, take this inspired action, because all the magic is in between the lines. So when I got there, it was rainy, and Gianfranco met me at the gate. He built this beautiful gate, and there's just so much patience and care with everything. Like, in order for me to get off the property, I had to open up this lock with this legit chain on it. And then now that I know him, I know the gate was just this beautiful wood, crafted with so much care. And then I would have to slide these pieces of wood through these little keyholes that he had created, and then open up. It wasn't like I could just be okay, see ya. There was a patient process to everything. And when I got there, it was raining, and he was in this Gore-Tex jacket and hood on and everything. And I pulled the car in, and then I got out of the car and I turned around and he took the hood off, and he was a beautiful man. And what I came to find out was he was 100 times more beautiful on the inside. And so what I mean by that is I would go to his place to give him because he composted, and he had this hole in the ground that he showed me, and I would compost food there and everything. And we would have these 5-8 minute, deep, beautiful conversations. And then I would be off, and he just gave me my space. And he was just know that there is a person that's living down there who is an incredible steward, not only of the earth, but of humanity. And that's not something you can script or be I have to make sure that my host is this or that. So my intention was to go and to meditate and to write and to train. And yeah, I did all of those things. Because the front of the cabin was one big, huge sliding glass door, I would wake up in the morning, I would make my fire, I would put on the kettle. I had a ton of, all I drank was warm lemon water. And then I had which I'm drinking right now, my instant Nescafe espresso, which is just bringing me back. It was so good. And I would journal, and I would lay on the couch in that comfy blanket, and I would just stare at the trees. I would do that for hours. I wouldn't speak. And the first thing, the priority of this trip was to rest. And I said that when I got there. Gianfranco was okay, down this path is my house. If you need anything, you let me know. And I said, I need rest. I need to rest my body. I need to recover my voice. And then each day was kind of in similar imprint of that. And it was peace, and it was pain, and it was profound. I thought it was going to be all the feels, and it was all the feels. But one thing that was just immersing myself in nature and just seeing how those 5 elements of air, space, water, fire, and earth are always interacting with each other without fight or resistance. Sometimes the earth and the water are more prevalent. Sometimes the sun comes out and the water is not so prevalent. One day I walked down a couple 2K down the road to this bridge that crossed over a river, and I dangled my feet off the bridge, and I just sat there and I watched these dragonflies for hours. It must have been 2 hours. I just watched these 2 dragonflies that just kept cycling through and playing and sitting on rocks, and they'd go on the rock, and I would just watch. That's what I did was I observed nature in this really deep sense for, like 6 days. I wrote a lot. I started writing another book. Don't think it's coming out anytime soon. But I started to write some pearls of wisdom and gold and a lot of crap. And we'll see how that continues to unearth. It's hard to put into words, but I got some really important clarity on just how we integrate as humans, letting go. And also, right before I did have cell service, if you've listened to this podcast, you know that my father is in his final time of life. And I talked to my mom and it was just so poetic and fierce. And she said, "It won't be long now." And then we got cut off. And I basically drove through a rainstorm down this dirt road off the pavement and into my week. And I pictured my dad, who is now just fully on hospice and lying in a hospital bed. He doesn't have the strength to sit up or anything. And found a lot of, I had peace around it, found a little bit of pain with it, and then peace as well. And I might get a chance to say goodbye in person. I might not. But there was one night where I was lying on the couch, again, door open, comfy blanket, fire going, warm lemon water. And I was looking up at the clouds and I was just watching the clouds go by. And you know how you see things in the clouds? And I saw my father's face. I wrote it in my journal, like 7:15 p.m. on, because I was like, is he making his transition? Like, wow, that would be a great opener for the next book. And I was like, it was one of those things that I sat up because it was his face. It was his face, and it was his face, not younger, but his face now lying, and he just sleeps most of the day now. And that was just this, I don't know what it was. It's hard to describe it, but it was there. And maybe that was the goodbye. I don't know. I'm planning on going home, and we'll see if I say that goodbye physically, but I am at peace with the last physical goodbye I had with him. So I don't even know where the beginning of that question was or even what the content of it was, but I did get some really beautiful clarity, and I felt incredibly, and I still do, just felt incredibly balanced through immersing myself in the stillness, yet always in motion, atmosphere of pure, raw, unfiltered nature.
Was there ever a moment in those days in the cabin where your human self appeared to present with any resistance as to, I just wish I, could get outside and run a little bit longer, or I wish I just had some peanut butter, or anything that humanly matched you back to reality? Or was it mostly smooth sailing? Oh, I knew you mentioned meditation, but
yeah, I had a little bit of I would sit for 45 minutes in the morning, and I had a little squirmy a couple of days, just squirmy at the end, where I was just sitting it, just sitting it. I was I was fully not in any kind of Zen state. I felt but stuff was coming up. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it's from. It doesn't really matter. I felt really squirmy, and I was just sitting it, just sit there. And one day I looked at the timer. I was like, all right. And I'm just admitting this now, everyone. I opened my eyes and I'm like, I just have to see how much longer I have. And I had 9 minutes, and I was like, okay, and that gave my mind a little bit of relief in that moment to actually spend that last 9 minutes, just kind of focused on a nice mantra. But I felt some squirminess. I think an interesting thing that I felt was I got there. First priority was I need to rest. And I slept. So I was sleeping 10 hours a night. To have have no demands. I had no demands. I had no phone calls I needed to return. Now, I love what I do, and I love my client sessions. I love working with athletes. I love Yogi Triathlete in this community. I had no demands, and that was wonderful. And that's not something that I want to live a life of not participating in the world. I think the greatest work I do is the work that I do in this world, and not just what we impart in the world, but how the world will present for me in a way where I get to do a lot of good work. So, meaning deep, inner, uncomfortable work. So interesting. I think it was might have been like Monday or Tuesday. I could feel, it's almost like if you meditate every day for 30 minutes and then you decide that you're going to go for an hour, there's a part of you at 30 minutes that goes, okay, that's good. That's enough. And then you have to sit in that next 30 minutes if you want to fulfill the hour meditation, and you'll ebb and flow. I think it was probably Tuesday. I was rested. Meditation was going well. Like, I was calm. I felt super balanced, and I was like, I am so glad I have like 3 more days, because I could feel, and actually that was the day that I was originally going to check out. And I was like, oh no, this is now the sitting in it part, because I felt like the mind was like, okay, I'm all tidied up. I'm rested. I feel good. I feel balanced. I journaled. I wrote. Okay, let's go. And I was like, oh, no. We're not going anywhere. We have like 3 more days. And that was probably the one time where I just noticed how the mind was like, normally would have been like, let's say I was going to have a down weekend here. Like, I'm just going to take care of myself this weekend. You could see how you'd be like, okay, Monday, I'm back into it. And I felt that part that was like, okay, we're good. Let's go. And I was like, oh no, we're not going anywhere. And and so that's where the real good stuff happens, when you think you're like, okay, I'm good, and you go, no, we're just going to sit in this a little bit longer. That's where you really just like melt. That's what those last days were really where I just melted into a much deeper state of balance and clarity and peace, like really just lying there and being like, my God, like I'm just in complete peace. Feel the peace. Feel the peace. And I say that to my athletes a lot. Like, the athletes that I work with, they want to be better. They want to perform better. They want to get faster. They want to do all these things, right? And maybe like the mindset is the last piece that they've tackled. And so we go in there and we get it, right? And so we have this tendency, especially when we're achievers or overachievers, of like, okay, where's my opportunity for work? And a lot of time, every time I bring in the thing of like, let's look at what you're already doing that's excellent. Let's look at all the moments you already have of joy and peace. Because as we sink into those more, we're training ourselves for contentment. We're training ourselves for peace. And so it's important to look at our opportunities. It is also important to let's look at all of the moments in our life where we're already feeling so much peace. And in those days, it's like if I could just sink in deeper. Free divers, there's a point where when you're free diving where the pull reverses and then it starts to pull you down. And that was the turning point for me, where it started to pull me into this deeper state of peace where I could sit on a bridge for hours and watch 2 dragonflies and watch how the water just continually flowed like past the rocks, so perfectly yet different every time.
So that same element of, you wanting, or the mind wanting more, saw the clear skies, went inside, then wanted more, went back out, was cloudy. As you described that experience, did it ever come up to you, up in your mind, like I want more of this when I get back? When I get back into the day-to-day activity of the routine life, that you want more of this peace and calm that you're experiencing?
No, I didn't, because I feel like I have a lot of peace and calm in my life. But I did see areas of my life that I want to nurture more. So that was what I came back with, was where are areas that I want to nurture more. Yeah.
Do you want to share any of them? One of them? A half of one?
Well, I think one of those is with you. You know, like Yogi Triathlete is our shared stewardship. You know, it was created through us. And man, we have just had the freaking balls to keep going. It's unbelievable to partner with somebody who has the resolve that I do to see this through. And it can be all encompassing. And it has been so hard. And relationally, like with some people who have passed through Yogi Triathlete, it has been downright brutal and really hard to let go, because sometimes when you shine the light, it can be too much and it comes back at you harsh. And we have had that, and it's been tough. And we've come together in those moments in letting go and blessing it and letting go. And what are we here to learn? How can we be better? How can we see this with compassion? And sometimes we go out to dinner and it's like, okay, let's talk about like, okay, squad. Like, okay, how do we reach the people? Like, we have this great, the product is gold, but we got to read. And so it's having this incredible creation, but our relationship cannot just be Yogi Triathlete. And it's not, but it also can't just be Yogi Triathlete and our training. Like, it needs to, who are Jess and BJ without all of that? 27 years into this relationship, we're doing pretty damn good, but I came back with this clarity of like, we need to continue to nurture who you and I are as husband and wife, as two people who love each other, who share everything in this life. We need to also nurture that. We need to nurture our love in every way that makes a partnership successful. And so I don't know what that looks like or how it's going to happen, but it's time away where this child, this Yogi Triathlete that has been birthed through us does not exist. There needs to be time with just you and me, or this can't, it won't last. We can't just have a relationship that's built around a business. And it's massive because it's our lifestyle. But I love it too because it's going to take us to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I shared with you while you were away, like isolation, going into isolation away from the day-to-day is even more crucial now to that next expansion. It's like the trampoline for that next jump, that next level of growth. It's the launching pad for that next rocket of desire that we know can be manifested and fulfilled. But it takes that time alone. You know, on this side, you were away and I was in the day-to-day, but it was different. It was different. It was quiet. It was a lot of reflection time. I found it very routine. Like I got into a routine. Probably the routine that you were doing while you were here, and I was a little bit late to the party. But I feel like the time away is so valuable, and this is something we've always done. But I think this time that we've had over 2 weeks apart, and even days when we didn't even talk or connect, is that next growth spurt for us. And you come up against what you believe is the way through, and you're presented again with things that you didn't really have in your awareness that then are presented, and you're like, wow, I didn't think about it like that. Okay, that's the shift. That's important. We need to do something not dramatically different. We need to pivot just slightly and move this way. And I think that's the way we run business, and that's the way our relationship has thrived. We take these opportunities away from each other. Yeah, I was sad. I was, plus Clark was just waiting for you to come home by the front door every night. So it's like, why am I alone? But again, to what I started this with is I'm supposed to be in isolation. Not supposed to be. I feel like my purpose is to, and I think you agree, like to be in the moments of isolation, seclusion, whether that's in your mind, physically, or just spiritually, to come out of it with some sense of awareness, awakening for that next thing. So I think part of me wants to have you here, right? And then there's part of me that's like, it's such a gift that you love what you do, which takes you to these places that you grow and expand. And I'm here doing the same thing, just in a different place. And we're never really apart. I never felt apart from you. Did you?
I felt it was me and nature. But I don't feel like, I think I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Like it's like it's not my dad, but like, I guess akin to this is like, even though I'm 3,000 miles away from my dad, who's could be taking his last breath right now, that distance is not a factor.
No.
In my relationship to him. So like that distance, right. But how do I say this? I was fully focused on me. And I don't say that in a way where I'm like, I don't care about you, but that was my time, and I was really good at letting that be my time. And I don't think that our relationship was compromised because of that.
No, I don't either.
But I wasn't really thinking about much else than what I was experiencing and what was in front of me, because the presence and the resilience and the abundance of nature were the lessons that I was there to immerse myself in. And it was like me, this tiny little thing in this massive, like, container of nature. And I wasn't thinking about much else than what was coming up in the moment.
Beautiful. What else? Do you want to share anything else?
I think to finish it up, unless there was anything else that you wanted to.
Oh, she's breaking open the...
I'm breaking open the journal. I don't know if I'm going to read from it, but let's say. I think, I made a little list here of like all the miracle moments. There's so many miracle moments. And I wrote here in my journal, like, I feel like every time I look up from an inspired nudge, I see a miracle. The starry night sky, the two condors dancing in the air before me, the fire in the sky. Oh my God, that was amazing. That was another miracle moment. And then I just said, keep listening, keep acting inspired, keep creating, and never give up. But all the animals were also teachers, all these so I was like, here's what I can recall since arriving. A snake. And it was like, I was at this overlook area. It was like overlooking this incredible valley. And I was like, I just had this thought of like, I wonder if there's snakes here. And then I got back on the trail and I don't know, one step in, huge snake right on the trail. And I was like, oh, okay, there's snakes here. And I stopped and I turned around and looked at it. And then I just watched it. Like, again, no demands, no place to be. I don't know how long I watched this snake, but I just watched it, and it kind of like picked up its head, it looked over at me, and I just like watched it. I don't know what kind of snake it was. I was actually going to look and see what kind of snakes are there, but the dragonflies, the condors, cows, the hawks. There was this one day where I was running. I did a 12-mile run one day, and I was running on this dirt road, and like all of a sudden I realized that there's a hawk at eye level in front of me, like leading the way. And then out of my peripheral vision, I see another hawk that's probably like 10 feet from me, eye level, right next to me. Like as I'm running, the hawk is right next to me. There's a hawk in front of me. And I was like, what is going on? And then I look, and there's I think it's the Bulco, can't remember if I'm pronouncing that right, volcano that's there. And it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And again, like, I just feel like this tiny little blip in somebody else's land. The bees, oh my God, the bees, lizards, dogs, all the dogs are amazing there. Butterflies, bugs of all sorts. Like, yeah, like, oh God, I've got all these things here that I've written, but a little brave of me to read this. Let's see what we got here. My final sleep at the refuge. Wow, what a dream come true. The full effect I will surely feel as I make my way home and step back into my life. Free. Bless it and let it go. The final morning at the refuge, I woke up early to the sound of rain, bringing me full circle to the first morning. But the cycle of weather does not reflect the woman I am today. I have settled, rested, let go, and evolved. I healed, realized, and know the next step forward. After that, who knows? But when the time is here, I will know. Setting intention, sharing perspective, and letting go. Forcing is something I've been awake to, and the practice of detachment and trust has been the answer and the practice. Nothing in this world lasts forever, and accepting the winds of change as if they are perfectly scripted for my life is my path forward. Talking to Gianfranco yesterday about the inevitable development of this area is a hurt on his heart. There's no electricity here now, and with the development that comes things like electricity. And there's a large sign up the road with what I would estimate to be about 30 or 40 plots with parking and some fencing that's in there now, and the fencing is modern and clean. Unlike other properties that you see with handmade barbed wire fence and a single master lock, if that. This refuge, as I know it today, will never be the same, nor is it since I arrived. The wood I have burned, the sticks I've collected for kindling, and the energy I have given and received all changes a place, and it reminds me of something I say to my athletes after a race, especially a really good race, a special experience. I say, it's a part of you now. You can let it go because you'll never be without it. You're changed forever because of it, and your cells are imprinted with the energy of the day. Your memory never to be the same. It's now a part of your whole. And one thing I leave out, the end piece that I learned on this trip, is that it all becomes a part of us. The life-enhancing victories, the easy days, and the dark ones too. It's so difficult. It's so hard to look at the pain we inflict on ourselves and others and our environment. But we must, if we want to live a desired life, we must practice so that we can feel, so that we can transcend the emotional charges that are keeping us in our cycles. We must, if we want to feel whole, if we want to know ourselves, sleep at night and wake up from the stupor that most will dwell within their entire life. Because as this chapter began, who we are that waits for us doesn't wait for a part of us. It waits for all of us. Full integration is what is required, and nothing less will suffice.